Hello everybody, my name is Daulton Nelson and today I'd like to give my thoughts on the game I just beat. That game being Kirby Air Ride for the Nintendo GameCube. Kirby Air Ride was developed by HAL Laboratory and published by Nintendo. It is a racing game. Out of all of the video games that I had anticipated playing in my life, Kirby Air Ride was somewhere at the top. I learned about this game when I was very young, and was very excited about this game's look and feel. Fast forward a couple years, and I finally got a chance to play the game for a short time. I played Air Ride's City Trial mode only, and immediately fell in love with the concept of owning the game for myself and playing it whenever I wanted. However, I never owned a GameCube as a child, and by the latter years of my Wii's lifespan, I was never able to earn the money I needed in order to buy the game. Fast forward again to this January, when I went to MagFest. I was able to find and buy a GameCube with wires and controller for really cheap. Of course, Kirby Air Ride was the first game I bought with my new console purchase. And that brings us to today. Finally, as an adult, I got to play one of my most anticipated games as a child. Now that I've played a good amount of Kirby Air Ride, I have to say I am disappointed with what Air Ride has to offer. Kirby Air Ride has an inability to keep the player engaged past 2 hours of play. Not most, but everything that Kirby Air Ride has to offer can be experienced within the first 2 hours of playing the game. Kirby Air Ride has 3 modes: Air Ride, Top Ride, and City Trial. Air Ride is your straightforward racing mode. Players and CPUs must race laps around a set course to see who can finish the set amount of laps first. Along the way, enemies from the previous Kirby installments will roam around the course, which players can suck up and copy their abilities like in the previous games. Problems with the Air Ride mode start with its pace. This mode is shockingly chaotic, busy, and breakneck. Normally, Kirby games by purposeful design are easygoing and simple to play through, but in this Air Ride mode, it's the polar opposite, with races that make it hard to discern what's happening on the screen, while other racers pummel you with powers that you didn't even know were coming at you. And all of this at a speed that would make F-Zero seem tame. It just does not work, and the Air Ride races were never fun for me. Meanwhile, there is Top Ride, which is another straightforward racing mode, but this time the camera is at a fixed and slightly tilted top-down angle, with simplistic courses and only 2 choices of movement control. This mode was most likely designed for absolute beginners of the racer genre, and I very much appreciate that. But there isn't very much to this mode. There are items that you can pick up and use either for your benefit or against your opponents. Only this time, you can see the danger coming at you in this mode. However, the actual racing can get visually busy as well. It is very easy to lose yourself in the chaos, and all the racers from this perspective bleed into each other and look the same. I also found that the dynamic zooming that the camera does to fit all the racers on the screen does nothing but block very important aspects of the course, like obstacles or turns. The zoom should have been kept static, with the whole course in the frame the entire time. Now I'll get to the City Trial mode in a second, but I feel that now is a good time to bring up the checklist. Kirby Air Ride is the first game where director Masahiro Sakurai implements his checklist/challenges. For those of you who don't know, Masahiro Sakurai is the creator of the Kirby franchise, the Super Smash Bros. Franchise, and Kid Icarus Uprising, and is the director of Kirby Air Ride. The checklist in Air Ride is a board of squares. Milestone goal data is stored in each of these squares. When a goal is reached, that square will go into a checked state, while all adjacent squares go into a revealed state, which only show the goal that the player will have to reach in order to check off that corresponding square. Some checked squares will give prizes. In the context of this game, you can get a Kirby color swap, a new playable vehicle, or a new rule set. My problems with the checklist start at the amount of content that the checklist actually provides. A good majority of the boxes do not reward prizes, so as the game continues on for the player, they may feel that their time was wasted trying to check off some of these goals, only to get nothing at all. Some of these goals are also outrageous, like finishing first hundreds of times per mode, or duplicates of the same tasks but at different levels, or spending a long amount of time on the free run modes that offer nothing at all for the player. At the end of it all, the checklist makes the game feel like a list of chores, where no benefit is in sight for the player. But not everything within Kirby Air Ride is frustrating or problematic. The City Trial mode is one of the most replayable and fun modes in the game. In this mode, players are given 5 minutes to drive around a city, collecting items, messing with each other, and participating in random events in order to have a machine at the end of the allotted time that will help them in the final minigame that decides who wins, who loses, and where all the other placements are. The design and the layout of this city is masterful. The city has multiple distinct parts that each have their own visual style. The city also uses more than just one plane, making great use of 3D technology, while still being simple enough to be able to navigate through the landscape with ease. The random items and events that pop up also help the mode feel fresh. These items include icons that will either power up or power down a specific statistic of your driving. The items also include weapons that you can use to damage your opponents, and food to replenish the health of the vehicle you are using. Now, City Trial isn't without its faults, but compared to everything else thus far, City Trial always ends up feeling like a breath of fresh air when played through. The control scheme of Kirby Air Ride is wonderfully simple. I feel like some context is important here before we continue. Director Masahiro Sakurai has always thrown around the idea of the one-button game since the creation of Kirby's Dream Land. The one-button game concept that Sakurai talks about is a game that uses only one button and the rest is handled by the control stick or the movement pad. Since Dreamland, Sakurai had continued to evolve that idea with the minigames featured in Kirby's Adventure and Kirby Superstar. Now with this game, Sakurai evolves that idea yet again by making the primary mechanic use only one button and the control stick. The controls within Air Ride work like this. The player moves on their own. No buttons need to be pressed. The stick is used to guide the direction of the player. If the player moves the stick quickly side to side, they will execute a quick spin that will damage whatever it hits. The one button used in the game is the A button. This button is used to brake and drift. If the player holds this button, the player will charge up energy. Then, when the button is lifted, they will boost with the energy they have. I absolutely love how easy this game is to pick up and play, and how simple the concept for the controls is. The mechanics here are a masterclass of minimalistic gameplay. Finally, I think this game may appeal to a lot of enthusiasts of Masahiro Sakurai and his video game making. A lot of the elements that are prominently featured in his latter titles, or concepts that he normally discusses, show up in this game. There is the aforementioned checklist and the one-button game concept. There is also extensive record keeping, fantastic and visually interesting UI designs, and the omnibus format seen in games like Kirby Superstar and Super Smash Bros. I also think a couple of the flaws that are featured throughout his games are also here as well. Flaws like the screen being so visually busy, it's easy to lose yourself, grindy milestones that need to be met in order to unlock more content, and so much of an emphasis on accessibility that basic rules of software design are either tossed aside or completely ignored. All in all, I enjoyed a lot of Kirby Air Ride, but I also disliked a lot about Kirby Air Ride as well. Air Ride has great controls and has a great ability to be picked up and played by anybody, but there isn't much content within Kirby Air Ride, and the content that is there is either too fast or too busy to be enjoyable. I'm going to give Kirby Air Ride a final score of a 5 out of 10. I think the thing that really kills Kirby Air Ride for me is when I compare the game to my top 10 games of last year. Most of those games you can get for about $20 or less. Meanwhile, Kirby Air Ride is about $30 on Amazon if you're lucky, and that's only at very good condition. I think with my 2018 top games, you can get more out of those than you can out of this, and the fact that you can get those at a cheaper price makes this game pale in comparison. That concludes my review of Kirby Air Ride. If you like my review, you can like, comment, or subscribe. I also have social media links down in the description below, as well as a link to my online portfolio where you can see video game design works that I have done. And with that out of the way, please make sure to have a nice day.